The library had always been Amara's safe place. It was the one corner of the university where the noise of the world softened into something manageable. Rows of tall wooden shelves stood like quiet guardians, filled with books that smelled of ink, dust, and time. The hum of the ceiling fan spun lazily above, pushing warm air around in slow circles. Somewhere in the distance, pages flipped. A chair creaked. Someone coughed. Life was normal. Painfully, beautifully normal. Amara sat at her usual spot near the far window, where sunlight filtered through the dusty blinds and painted thin golden lines across her notebook. Her pen moved steadily as she copied down notes from a thick textbook, her handwriting neat and careful, each word placed with intention. She liked control. She liked order. Maybe because life outside the library rarely gave her either. Amara, a soft voice whispered. She looked up to see her friend, Saad, leaning slightly over the table, her lips curved in a teasing smile. "You've been reading that same page for 10 minutes, Saad said. "Are you studying or trying to enter the book?" Amara blinked, then let out a small laugh. "I'm studying," she replied. "Some of us actually want to pass this semester." Saad rolled her eyes playfully. "And some of us know how to pass without looking like we're preparing for war." Amara smiled but didn't respond. That was Saad, light, carefree, always joking. Amara envied her sometimes. "You're coming for lunch, right?" Saad asked. Amara hesitated. I might stay back a little longer." Saad tilted her head, studying her. "You said that yesterday. And the day before. I just need to finish this chapter." "Or," Saad said, lowering her voice slightly, "you don't have money again." The words landed gently, but they still stung. Amara forced a smile. "I'm fine." Saad didn't look convinced, but she didn't push further. "Okay, but don't faint, hero. I'm not carrying you to the clinic." Amara laughed softly. "I'll survive." "Better." Saad straightened. "I'll bring you something if there's extra." "You don't have to." "I know," Saad cut in. "But I will." And just like that, she walked away. Amara watched her go, a mix of gratitude and quiet embarrassment settling in her chest. She turned back to her book, but her eyes weren't really reading anymore. Her mind drifted, as it often did, to her parents. Her father would have called by now. He always did. "Have you eaten?" he would ask, his voice warm and steady. And her mother would shout from the background, "Don't forget to rest. That girl doesn't know how to rest." Amara smiled faintly at the memory. They worried too much, but she loved them for it. Her phone buzzed suddenly on the table, pulling her out of her thoughts. She glanced down. Unknown number. Her brows knit slightly. She almost ignored it, but something, some small, unexplainable feeling, made her pick it up. "Hello?" she said softly. There was a pause. A strange, heavy pause. "Hello?" she repeated, a bit louder this time. A man's voice came through, hesitant, unsure. "Good afternoon. Please, is this Amara Okeke?" Her heart gave a small, uneasy thump. "Yes, this is Amara." Another pause. Longer this time. Her fingers tightened slightly around the phone. "Who is this, please?" "I'm calling from St. Mary's Hospital," the voice said slowly. Something shifted in her chest. "Hospital?" Her mind began to race. "Okay," she said carefully. "What is this about? Are you related to Mr. and Mrs. Okeke?" Her throat went dry. "Yes. They're my parents." Silence again. But this silence felt different. Heavier. Like it was carrying something it didn't want to deliver. Amara sat up straighter. "Hello? What's going on? Are they okay?" The man on the other end exhaled softly, as if bracing himself. "There was an accident this morning." The words didn't register at first. They floated in the air, distant and unclear. "An accident?" Amara repeated. "Yes, a road accident." Her heart began to pound. No, that's not possible. My parents are careful." "They don't. They were brought into the hospital early this morning," he continued gently. Amara's grip on the phone tightened. "Put them on the phone," she said quickly. "I want to speak to them." There was no response. "Hello? Can you hear me? Put my parents on the phone." "I'm very sorry, Miss Amara." Something inside her snapped. "Don't say sorry," she said, her voice trembling now. "Just put them on the phone." A pause. Then the words came. Soft, careful, and devastating. "They didn't survive." The world stopped. Not slowed. Not faded. Stopped. Amara stared straight ahead, her eyes wide, unblinking. "No," she whispered. Her voice was barely there. "No, you're lying. I'm so sorry. You're lying," she said louder now, her voice cracking. "That's not true. That can't be true." People nearby began to glance in her direction. She didn't notice. "My parents are fine," she continued, shaking her head as if he could see her. "I spoke to them yesterday. My mother was laughing. My father said he would send money next week. They are fine." Her chest tightened painfully. "You must have made a mistake. Check again." On the other end, the man's voice was quiet. "We confirmed their identities through their documents." Amara's breathing became uneven. "No. The accident was severe. No. We tried everything we could. No." The word tore out of her. Heads turned. A book dropped somewhere. The library was no longer quiet. But none of that mattered. Amara's world was collapsing. "You're wrong," she whispered, tears streaming down her face now. "You have to be wrong. I'm deeply sorry for your loss." Loss. The word echoed in her mind like a gunshot. Loss. As if her parents were something misplaced. Something gone. Something never coming back. The phone slipped from her hand and hit the table with a dull sound. She didn't pick it up. She didn't move. Her body felt numb, like it didn't belong to her anymore. The sunlight that once felt warm now felt harsh, blinding. The air felt too thick, too heavy. She couldn't breathe. "Amara?" Sada's voice, distant, concerned. "Amara, what happened?" Hands touched her shoulders, but Amara didn't respond. Her lips moved slowly. "They're gone," she whispered. "What?" "My parents." Her voice broke completely. "They're gone." Sad froze. "What do you mean gone?" Amara turned to her, her eyes hollow, shattered. "They're dead." The word hung between them, heavy, unreal. Sada's face crumpled instantly. "Oh my God!" She pulled Amara into a tight embrace. And that's when it hit. Not all at once, but in waves. Violent, unstoppable. Amara let out a cry. A deep, broken sound that seemed to come from the very core of her being. She clutched Sad tightly, her body shaking with sobs. "No, no, no. This can't be happening." Her mind flooded with memories. Her mother braiding her hair. Her father teaching her how to ride a bicycle. Family dinners filled with laughter. Late-night talks. Warm hugs. Love. So much love. Gone. Just like that. No goodbye. No warning. Just gone. "I want to see them," Amara cried. "I need to see them." Sad held her tighter. "We'll go, okay? We'll go together." But Amara barely heard her. All she could hear was the echo of those words. They didn't survive. Her entire future unraveled in that moment. The parents who supported her education. The home she could always return to. The people who loved her unconditionally. All of it vanished. And in its place was silence, fear, and a loneliness so deep it felt like it might swallow her whole. Amara cried until her voice grew weak. Until her body felt too heavy to hold itself up. Until reality finally settled in, not as acceptance, but as a cruel, unchangeable truth. Her parents were gone, and nothing would ever be the same again. The journey to Lagos felt longer than it actually was. Amara sat by the window of the bus, her head resting lightly against the glass as the world outside blurred past in dull streaks of green and brown. The hum of the engine vibrated beneath her, steady and indifferent. Just like everything else in her life now, people moved on. Traffic flowed. Vendors shouted. Life continued, but hers had stopped. Her small bag sat on her lap, clutched tightly in both hands as if it was the only thing anchoring her to reality. Inside it were a few clothes, some documents, and the last pieces of the life she used to know. Everything else was gone. The burial had been a blur of tears, condolences, and unfamiliar faces saying things like, "Be strong," and "God knows best." Amara didn't feel strong, and in that moment she didn't want explanations. She just wanted her parents back. But life didn't offer that option. So now she was on her way to Lagos, to live with her uncle, her father's younger brother, the man who had barely visited while her parents were alive. The man who now, suddenly, was her only family. Amara swallowed hard and adjusted her grip on the bag. It will be okay, she told herself. It has to be. When the bus finally pulled into the chaotic Lagos park, reality hit harder. The noise was overwhelming. Conductors shouting destinations, engines roaring, vendors weaving through crowds with trays balanced on their heads. Gala. Pure water. Cold drink. Amara stepped down slowly, her legs stiff, her body exhausted. She stood there for a moment, unsure, lost. Then she spotted him. Her uncle. He stood a few meters away, wearing a faded shirt and dark trousers, his expression unreadable. Amara's heart lifted slightly. Family. She walked toward him, forcing a small smile. "Good afternoon, sir," she said respectfully. He looked at her briefly, then nodded. "You've arrived." That was all. No hug. No, "How was your journey?" No warmth. Just acknowledgement. Amara's smile faded slightly, but she pushed it aside. "Yes, sir." He took her bag without another word and began walking. She followed quietly. The ride to his house was silent. Not the comfortable kind of silence, but the heavy, awkward kind that made every second feel longer. Amara glanced at him a few times, hoping he might say something, ask about her, comfort her, anything. But he didn't. He just drove. When they finally arrived, Amara looked around. The house was modest, paint peeling slightly, the gate creaking as it opened. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't welcoming either. Still, it was a place to stay. And right now, that was enough. As they stepped inside, a sharp voice cut through the air. "So you've brought her?" Amara turned. A woman stood in the living room, hands on her hips, eyes scanning her from head to toe. Her aunt. There was no smile on her face, only irritation. "Yes," her uncle replied simply. The woman scoffed. Amara stepped forward politely. "Good afternoon, Ma." Her aunt didn't respond immediately. She just kept staring, her eyes narrowing slightly. Then she finally spoke. "So this is the girl." The tone wasn't welcoming. It was judgmental. Amara shifted uncomfortably. "Yes, Ma." Her aunt clicked her tongue. "You've grown." Amara wasn't sure how to respond. "Thank you, Ma." The woman turned to her husband. "Where will she stay?" "In the spare room," he replied. Her aunt laughed. A short, dry sound. "Spare room? That place is full already." He shrugged. "Then clear it." She stared at him for a moment, clearly annoyed. Then she looked back at Amara. "You'll manage," she said flatly. It wasn't a question. It was a warning. The spare room turned out to be a cramped space filled with old boxes, broken furniture, and things that looked like they hadn't been touched in years. Dust hung in the air. The smell was stale. Amara stood at the doorway, taking it all in. "This is where you'll stay," her aunt said behind her. Amara nodded slowly. "Yes, Ma." "You can start by cleaning it." "Yes, Ma." "And don't expect me to do anything for you. You're not a child." Amara swallowed. "I understand, Ma." Her aunt watched her for a moment longer, then turned and walked away. Just like that. No kindness. No sympathy. Nothing. Amara stepped into the room and closed the door softly behind her. For a moment, she just stood there. Then her shoulders slumped, and the tears came, quiet, painful, unstoppable. She sank to the floor, wrapping her arms around herself as if trying to hold the pieces together. "This is my life now," she thought. No parents, no home, no comfort, just survival. The days that followed were worse than she imagined. It started subtly, small things. Her aunt would serve food, and somehow, Amara's portion was always smaller. Sometimes there was nothing left at all. "If you're hungry, cook," her aunt would say, but there was rarely enough food to cook. Then came the chores, sweeping, mopping, washing clothes, cooking for the entire household, morning till night, and still it wasn't enough. "You missed a spot. Is this how your mother trained you?" Useless girl. Each word chipped away at her, slowly, painfully. Her uncle? He said nothing. He saw everything, and said nothing. One evening, after hours of housework, Amara finally gathered the courage to speak. Her uncle was sitting in the living room watching television. She stood at the doorway, her hands clasped nervously. "Uncle, sir?" He didn't look at her. "What is it?" She hesitated. "My school fees. I was hoping." He muted the TV and turned to her, his expression already hardened. "You were hoping what?" Amara's heart pounded. "I want to continue my education," she said softly. "I just need support for now. I'll find a way to." He cut her off with a sharp laugh. "Support." The word sounded almost offensive coming from his mouth. "You think I have money to waste?" "It's not a waste, sir," she said quickly. "I just need time." "Time for what?" he snapped. "To sit in school while I feed you?" Her throat tightened. I can work and then go and work, he said bluntly. Sponsor yourself. The words hit hard. Amara blinked rapidly, trying to hold back tears. I just thought, since your family. Family? He scoffed. When your parents were alive, did they send me money? Amara froze. That's different. No, it's not, he said firmly. Everyone should carry their own burden. Her chest ached. So you won't help me? He picked up the remote and unmuted the TV. I've already helped you by giving you a place to stay. That was the end of the conversation. Just like that. That night, Amara lay on her thin mattress in the dusty room, staring at the ceiling. Her eyes were dry now. She had cried too much already. There were no tears left, only a heavy, suffocating emptiness. Her dreams of graduating, of making her parents proud, of building a better life, all slipping away, not because she wasn't capable, but because she was alone, completely, utterly, alone. She turned onto her side, clutching her small bag. I won't give up, she whispered into the darkness. Her voice was weak, but there was something in it, something stubborn, something unbreakable. I won't, because if she gave up, then everything her parents worked for, everything they believed in, would mean nothing, and that was something Amara could not allow. Even if the world turned against her, even if she had to fight alone, she would survive. She had to, because now, she was all she had left. The first morning Amara decided to hawk. She woke up before the sun, not because she wanted to, but because hunger had become her alarm clock. Her stomach twisted painfully as she lay on the thin mattress in her cramped room, staring at the cracked ceiling above. For a moment she didn't move. She just listened. The house was quiet. Her aunt and uncle were still asleep. A faint breeze slipped through the small window, carrying with it the distant sounds of Lagos waking up. Engines revving, early traders calling out, the city stretching itself into another day. Amara sat up slowly. Her body ached. The previous day had been filled with chores, endless sweeping, washing, cooking. Yet she had gone to bed with barely anything in her stomach. She pressed her palm lightly against her abdomen and exhaled. You have to do something, she told herself. You can't keep living like this. Her uncle had made it clear. No help. Her aunt had made it worse. No mercy. If she wanted to eat, if she wanted to return to school, if she wanted any kind of future at all, she would have to build it herself. From nothing. She moved quietly, careful not to make noise as she stepped out of her room. The floor was cold beneath her feet. In the kitchen she found nothing. No leftover food. No bread. Nothing. She wasn't surprised. She turned away, swallowing the disappointment. Today wasn't about food. Today was about survival. By 6 a.m., Amara was outside, walking briskly down the dusty street with a small nylon bag clutched in her hand. Inside it was the little money she had managed to gather. Coins saved from occasional errands her aunt sent her on. Tiny amounts she had secretly kept aside. It wasn't much, but it was enough to start. She reached the roadside market just as traders were setting up. Fresh tomatoes. Pepper. Buy pepper. The air buzzed with energy. Amara hesitated at the edge of the market, suddenly unsure. She had never done this before. She had seen people hawk, young boys, women, even children weaving through traffic with trays balanced on their heads. But she had never imagined she would become one of them. Her chest tightened. You don't have a choice. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward. Good morning, Ma, she said politely to a woman arranging sachets of water in a basin. The woman glanced up briefly. Morning. What do you want? I want to buy some pure water to sell. The woman's eyes scanned her quickly, taking in her appearance, her hesitation. You want hawk? She asked bluntly. Amara nodded. Yes, Ma. The woman shrugged. How many? Amara hesitated, then opened her nylon bag and counted quickly. I can afford 2 packs. The woman raised a brow. Nah, small start. Amara gave a small, nervous smile. Yes, Ma. Bring your money. Amara handed over the cash carefully, watching as the woman counted it. Carry 'em well, oh, the woman said, tying the packs together. If you fall, nah, your loss. Yes, Ma. Thank you, Ma. Amara lifted the packs, adjusting them awkwardly against her body. They were heavier than she expected, but she didn't complain. She couldn't. The sun was just beginning to rise when she reached the roadside. Cars lined up in traffic, honking impatiently. Vendors moved swiftly between them, calling out loudly. Pure water. Cold water. Gala. Biscuit. Amara stood at the edge, frozen. Her heart pounded. Her palms felt sweaty. What if no one buys? What if I embarrass myself? What if... A horn blared loudly, snapping her out of her thoughts. She flinched. Then slowly, she stepped forward. Pure water, she called softly. Her voice was barely audible. No one responded. She tried again, a little louder. Pure water. Cold water. Car window rolled down slightly. Bring one. Relief flooded her instantly. She rushed over, fumbling slightly as she handed over the sachet. 20 naira, she said. The man paid without looking at her. Keep the change. Amara blinked. Change? She looked down at the money in her hand. It was more than the price. Thank you, sir, she said quickly, but the window was already up. Still, it was her first sale. A small smile tugged at her lips. As the hours passed, Amara found her rhythm. She moved between cars, her voice growing stronger. Pure water. Cold water. Sweat trickled down her back as the sun climbed higher. Her arms ached from carrying the packs. Her feet hurt from walking on hot pavement. But she didn't stop, because for every sachet she sold, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Control. By midday, the sun was unforgiving. The heat pressed down on her like a heavy weight. Her throat was dry. Her stomach growled loudly. She hadn't eaten since the previous day. Still, she kept going. At one point, she watched as a young boy, no older than 10, ran past her, skillfully weaving through traffic with a tray of snacks on his head. He moved with confidence. Ease, like this was normal. Amara felt a sharp pang in her chest. This is someone's childhood, she thought. And now, it was her reality too. Around 2 p.m., she finally stopped. Her legs felt weak. Her body screamed for rest. She moved to the side of the road and sat on a low curb, wiping sweat from her face with the edge of her sleeve. She counted her money slowly, carefully. Her heart lifted. She had made a profit. Not much, but enough. Enough to buy more goods tomorrow. Enough to save a little. Enough to survive. A small, tired smile spread across her face. I can do this, she whispered. That night, when she returned home, no one asked where she had been. No one cared. Her aunt simply pointed to a pile of dirty clothes. Wash these before you sleep. Amara nodded quietly. Yes, Ma. Her body ached with exhaustion as she fetched water and began scrubbing. Her hands moved mechanically, her mind drifting. To the road. To the sales. To the money hidden safely in her bag. Hope. Small. Fragile. But there. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. Amara's routine became her life. Wake up before dawn. Buy goods. Hawk under the scorching sun. Return home. Do chores. Sleep. Repeat. She learned quickly how to call out louder, how to move faster between cars, how to avoid aggressive drivers and impatient customers, how to endure insults. Shift. You're blocking my car. Why are you people always disturbing? Go and find a better job. The words stung, but she swallowed them, because survival didn't leave room for pride. At night, despite her exhaustion, she still studied. Old textbooks, borrowed notes, anything she could get her hands on. Her eyes would grow heavy, her head would nod, but she forced herself to continue, because deep down, she knew this wasn't her final destination. This was just a phase, a painful, necessary phase. One evening, as she counted her savings again, something shifted. The money had grown, slowly, steadily. It wasn't just survival anymore. It was progress. Her fingers trembled slightly as she held the notes. This could be enough, she murmured. Enough for what? She didn't know yet, but she knew one thing. She wasn't stuck anymore. She was moving forward, even if it was one small step at a time. That night, as she lay on her mattress, her body aching but her heart slightly lighter, Amara stared at the ceiling once again. But this time, it didn't feel as suffocating, because for the first time since losing her parents, she wasn't just surviving. She was building something, from nothing, and no matter how hard it got, she wasn't going to stop. Not now. Not ever. By the time the opportunity appeared, Amara had almost forgotten what it felt like to dream. Not completely, but enough that hope no longer came easily. Life had reduced itself into a routine, predictable, exhausting, and unforgiving. Wake up, Hawk. Endure. Return home. Work. Sleep. Repeat. Each day blended into the next until time itself felt meaningless. Weeks passed, then months, and the version of Amara who once sat confidently in lecture halls began to feel like a distant memory, like someone else's life. Yet, somewhere deep inside her, something refused to die. A quiet voice. A stubborn whisper. You are meant for more than this. It was a Wednesday afternoon when everything shifted. The sun was harsh that day, pressing down on Lagos with its usual intensity. Traffic was worse than usual. Cars packed tightly together, horns blaring in frustration. Amara moved between them with practiced ease now. A small tray balanced on her head, filled with sachets of water and a few snacks she had recently added to increase her earnings. Pure water. Gala. Biscuit. Her voice was stronger now, confident, almost automatic. A driver waved her over. Bring 2 waters. She quickly handed them over, collected the money, and moved on without hesitation. She didn't notice the university gate at first. Not until she heard laughter. Light, carefree, familiar. She turned instinctively. Students. Groups of them walking in and out of the campus, chatting, laughing, arguing about assignments and lecturers. For a moment, everything around her faded. The noise, the heat, the traffic, all gone. All she could see was them, her people, her world, the one she had lost. Her chest tightened painfully. She stood there longer than she should have, watching as a girl adjusted her backpack and complained dramatically to her friend. I swear, if I fail this test, I'm done. Her friend laughed. You? Fail? You're the one that reads like your life depends on it. Amara felt something twist inside her. That used to be her, complaining about tests, worrying about grades, living a life where the biggest problem was an assignment deadline. Now, her biggest concern was whether she would eat that night. Madam, you know day cell again? A driver shouted impatiently. Amara blinked, snapping back to reality. Yes, sir. She hurried over, forcing herself back into motion. But something had shifted. Later that afternoon, when the traffic finally eased, Amara decided to take a shortcut through the side road near the campus. It was quieter there, less chaotic. She walked slowly, her tray still balanced on her head, her legs aching from hours of standing. That's when she saw it. First, it was just a crowd. A small group gathered around a notice board near the university gate. Students stood close together, some pointing, others taking pictures with their phones. Curiosity pulled at her. She hesitated. You don't belong there anymore. The thought came quickly, sharp, but something stronger pushed back. Just look. Slowly, she moved closer, carefully, as if afraid someone might chase her away. No one did. She stood at the edge of the crowd, stretching her neck slightly to see. Then she saw it. A bold headline printed on a large white paper. Graduate Trainee Recruitment. International Firm. Her heart skipped. She leaned in closer. Her eyes scanned the details rapidly. Location: Abuja. Qualification: university degree. Age requirement: 21-30. Application deadline: 2 weeks. Shortlisted candidates will be invited for physical interview. Amara's breathing slowed, then deepened, then quickened again. Her fingers tightened around the edge of her tray. This is it. The words echoed in her mind, not as a whisper this time, but as something louder, stronger. This is your chance. She read the details again and again, making sure she wasn't imagining things. An international company, a real opportunity, not just any job, career, a way out. Her heart pounded so loudly she could hear it. Excuse me, she said softly to a girl standing beside her. The girl turned, her eyes briefly scanning Amara, taking in her simple clothes, the tray on her head. Yes, please. Can you help me take a picture of this? Amara asked, holding out her small phone. The girl hesitated for a second, then shrugged. Okay. She snapped a few pictures and handed the phone back. Thank you, Amara said quickly. The girl nodded and turned away. But Amara didn't mind. She was too focused, too locked in. Her eyes remained on the notice. 2 weeks. Application. Interview in Abuja. Her mind began to calculate instantly. Transport, accommodation, clothes, documents. Everything required money. More money than she had ever held at once. Her excitement flickered slightly, reality creeping in. How will you afford it? The question sat heavy in her chest. She looked down at her tray, then at her worn slippers, then back at the notice. For a moment, doubt tried to take over. Then something inside her rose. Slowly, firmly, the same stubborn strength that had kept her going all these months. You didn't come this far to stop here. Her jaw tightened slightly. Her grip on the tray steadied. I'll find a way, she whispered. Not loudly, not dramatically, but with quiet certainty. I will. That evening, Amara didn't go straight home. Instead, she sat by the roadside under a fading sky, her tray beside her, her phone in her hands. She opened the pictures again, zoomed in, read every detail carefully. She memorized it, every requirement, every instruction. Her mind raced with possibilities. If she increased her sales, if she worked longer hours, if she cut down on everything, she could save enough. Maybe not comfortably, maybe not easily, but possibly. And for Amara, possible was enough. When she finally returned home, her aunt barely looked at her. You're late, she said sharply. Sorry, Ma. Go and cook. Yes, Ma. But something was different this time. Amara moved with a quiet urgency, a new energy. Even as she washed rice and chopped vegetables, her mind was elsewhere. Planning, calculating, determined. That night, after everyone had gone to sleep, she sat on her mattress, her phone glowing faintly in the darkness. She opened the image again. Her eyes lingered on the words, graduate trainee recruitment. A small smile formed on her lips. For the first time in a long time, her future didn't feel empty. It felt possible. She hugged her knees to her chest and whispered softly, this is my way out. And this time, she believed it. From that moment on, Amara changed. Not outwardly. She still hawked, still endured, still lived under the same harsh roof. But inside, she had a mission. Every coin she earned now had a purpose. Every step she took had direction. She was no longer just surviving. She was chasing something. And no matter how hard it got, no matter how impossible it seemed, she had made a decision. She would not let this opportunity pass her by. Not after everything she had been through. Not when she had come this far. Not when her entire future depended on it. Because sometimes, all it takes to change a life is one moment, one opportunity, one decision to say, I refuse to stay where I am. And Amara had just made hers. From the moment Amara made her decision, life stopped being about comfort entirely. Not that she had much comfort before, but now, even the little she had, she gave it up willingly. Because this time, she wasn't just surviving. She was chasing something. And chasing something she quickly realized required sacrifice. The next morning, she woke up even earlier than usual. This time, it wasn't hunger that pulled her from sleep. It was purpose. Her eyes opened in the darkness, and for a few seconds, she lay still, listening to the silence around her. Then she remembered. The opportunity. The interview. Abuja. Her future. She sat up immediately. I don't have time, she whispered. Not for hesitation. Not for weakness. Not for excuses. Her routine changed overnight. Before, she hawked to survive. Now she hawked to escape. And that difference showed. By 5:30 a.m., she was already at the market. The traders had begun to recognize her. You don't come early today, oh, one woman remarked as Amara approached her stall. Amara smiled faintly. Yes, Ma. Business done serious now? Amara hesitated for a second, then nodded. Very serious, Ma. The woman chuckled. Good. Na so life be. If you know serious, hunger go teach you. Amara didn't respond, because for her it wasn't just hunger anymore. It was urgency. She started buying more goods, more sachets of water, more snacks, more weight to carry, more risk, because if she didn't sell everything, she would lose money. But if she did, she would move closer to her goal. Every single day mattered now. The streets became her battlefield. The sun, her constant enemy. The traffic, her opportunity. And her body, her only tool. Pure water. Gala. Biscuit. Her voice rang louder now, cutting through the noise of engines and shouting vendors. Cars rolled by. Windows opened and closed. Money exchanged hands. And Amara moved. Relentless. Focused. Driven. But the harder she worked, the more her body began to protest. By midday, her feet burned. Blisters formed and broke. Her shoulders ached from balancing the tray. Her throat felt raw from shouting. And the sun was merciless. It beat down on her skin, leaving her drenched in sweat, her head light, her vision occasionally blurring. Still, she didn't stop. One afternoon, as she rushed between cars during a traffic holdup, a driver suddenly sped forward without warning. Amara barely had time to react. She jumped back, her heart slamming against her chest. Her tray tilted dangerously. A few sachets fell, bursting open on the hot tar. Water spilled everywhere. The driver didn't even look back. "Are you blind?" Another vendor shouted after the car. Amara stood frozen for a moment, staring at the wasted goods. That was money. Her money. Gone. Her chest tightened painfully. Tears threatened to rise, but she swallowed them. Slowly. Firmly. Then she bent down, picked up what she could salvage, adjusted her tray, and kept moving. Because stopping wouldn't bring the money back. At night, things didn't get easier. They got harder. "Why are you just coming back?" Her aunt snapped one evening as Amara entered the house, exhausted. "Sorry, Ma. Traffic was." "Excuses." Her aunt cut in sharply. "Go and cook. We haven't eaten." Amara nodded quietly. "Yes, Ma." Her legs felt like they might give out, but she forced herself into the kitchen. Cooking, serving, cleaning, washing plates, sweeping. By the time she was done, her body screamed for rest. But rest was a luxury she could no longer afford. After everyone had gone to sleep, Amara sat on the floor of her small room. Her savings lay in front of her, carefully arranged, notes straightened, coins stacked. She counted slowly, once, twice, 3 times. Her heart sank slightly. It wasn't enough. Not yet. She leaned back against the wall, closing her eyes briefly. "I'm trying," she whispered. Her voice was tired, fragile. "I'm really trying." For a moment, doubt crept in. What if you don't make it? What if all this effort isn't enough? What if... She shook her head quickly. No. Her eyes opened again, sharper now, determined. "I didn't come this far to fail." From that night on, Amara pushed herself even harder. She extended her hours. Where she used to stop by afternoon, she now stayed until evening. Sometimes even after sunset. The streets changed at night. Different crowd, different dangers. But she adapted. Because she had to. She also cut down on everything. Food became optional. If she ate once a day, it was enough. Sometimes, she drank water and slept. Other times, she ignored the hunger completely. Because every naira saved was a step closer. Her appearance began to change. Her cheeks grew slightly hollow. Her eyes carried a constant shadow of exhaustion. Her skin darkened under the relentless sun. But there was something else in her eyes now. Something stronger. Something unbreakable. One evening, as she sat counting her money again, something unexpected happened. Her aunt walked in. "What are you doing?" she asked suspiciously. Amara froze slightly. "Nothing, Ma. Just counting." Her aunt's eyes narrowed. "Counting what?" Amara hesitated. "My savings, Ma." Her aunt stepped closer, peering down at the money. She crossed her arms. "So you have money like this? And you're still eating my food?" The words hit hard. Amara looked up quickly. "Ma, I hardly eat." "From tomorrow," her aunt cut in, "you will start contributing to this house." Amara's heart dropped. "But Ma, I'm saving for something important." "Are you deaf?" her aunt snapped. "This is not a charity home." Her chest tightened. "Yes, Ma." That night, Amara cried quietly. Not loudly. Not like before. Just soft, painful tears that slipped down her face as she lay in the darkness. Because now, even her small progress was being threatened. But the next morning, she still woke up early. Still went to the market. Still carried her tray. Still shouted under the sun. Because giving up was not an option. Weeks passed. Slowly. Painfully. But steadily. Then one evening, everything changed. Amara sat on the floor again, her savings spread out before her. Her hands trembled slightly as she counted. Once, twice. She stopped. Her breath caught. She counted again, just to be sure. And then, a slow, disbelieving smile spread across her face. "It's enough." The words came out as a whisper. Soft, almost afraid, but real. "It's enough." Her heart pounded wildly. Tears filled her eyes. But this time, they weren't from pain. They were from relief. From victory. From the realization that all her sacrifice, all her suffering, all her effort, had not been in vain. She reached for her phone immediately. Her fingers shook as she searched for flight options. Her eyes scanned the prices. Her heart raced. And then she found it. A ticket. Affordable. Within her budget. Her breath hitched. This is it. Without allowing herself to overthink, she made the decision. Right there. Right then. She booked it. When the confirmation appeared on her screen, Amara stared at it for a long time. Her name, her flight, her future, all in one place. She let out a shaky laugh, covering her mouth as tears spilled over. I did it. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to feel it fully. Hope, real, solid, alive. That night, as she lay on her mattress, clutching her phone close to her chest, Amara stared into the darkness. But this time, the darkness didn't feel endless, because somewhere ahead of her, there was light, and she was finally moving toward it. One coin at a time. Amara barely slept the night before her flight. Not because she wasn't tired, her body was beyond exhausted, but because her mind refused to rest. Every time she closed her eyes, her thoughts came rushing back. What if something goes wrong? What if I miss it? What if I fail the interview? She turned on her thin mattress, clutching her small travel bag tightly to her chest as if it might disappear if she let go. Inside it were her most important possessions, her documents, a few carefully chosen clothes, and the printed copy of her flight ticket. Her ticket. Even now, it felt unreal. After everything she had gone through, she had actually made it this far. She sat up slowly, glancing at the small window. The sky was still dark. Too dark. She sighed and lay back down, then sat up again almost immediately. Sleep was pointless. By 4:30 a.m., Amara was already awake, dressed, and ready. She wore her simplest but neatest outfit, a plain blouse and a carefully pressed skirt she had ironed the night before using a neighbor's pressing iron. Her shoes were slightly worn, but she had cleaned them thoroughly until they almost looked new. She stood in front of the small, cracked mirror in her room, adjusting her collar nervously. "You can do this," she whispered to her reflection. Her voice was soft, but steady. For a moment, she imagined her mother standing behind her, smiling proudly. "Stand straight," her mother would say. "First impressions matter." Amara swallowed hard. "I wish you were here," she murmured. The room felt quiet, too quiet. She closed her eyes briefly, then opened them again. No tears today. She couldn't afford tears today. She stepped out of the room quietly, her bag slung over her shoulder. As expected, no one was awake. No one to wish her luck. No one to ask where she was going. No one to care. She paused at the door for a second, glancing back at the house. A strange feeling settled in her chest. Not sadness, not attachment, just emptiness. Then she turned and left. The journey to the airport felt surreal. Amara sat by the window of the bus, her eyes wide as she watched Lagos slowly come alive. This time, everything looked different. Not because the city had changed, but because she had. For months, these same roads had been her workplace, her struggle zone, her battlefield. Now, they felt like something she was leaving behind. Each passing street felt like a chapter closing. Her grip tightened slightly on her bag. "Don't get ahead of yourself," she warned herself. "You haven't made it yet." Still, she couldn't stop the small flicker of hope rising inside her. When she finally arrived at the airport, Amara froze. For a moment, she simply stood there, taking it all in. The massive building, the polished floors, the constant movement of people dragging suitcases behind them, the calm, controlled chaos of announcements echoing overhead. It was nothing like the streets she knew. Everything felt organized, distant, like a different world entirely. She adjusted her bag nervously and stepped forward, trying not to look out of place. Inside, the air conditioning hit her immediately, sending a slight chill down her spine. She hugged her arms lightly around herself. People walked past her confidently. Well-dressed men, elegant women, families, business travelers. Everyone seemed to know exactly where they were going. Except her. She looked around, her heart beginning to race again. "Don't panic." She spotted a sign. "Check-in." "Okay," she whispered. "Just follow the signs." Step by step, she moved forward. Careful, observant, learning as she went. At the check-in counter, her hands trembled slightly as she handed over her ticket and identification. The woman behind the desk barely looked at her. "Place your bag on the scale." Amara did as instructed. Her heart pounded as the woman typed on her computer. Then finally, "Here's your boarding pass." Amara blinked. "That's all." The woman nodded. "Yes, boarding will begin shortly. Gate 4. "Thank you," Amara said quickly, relief washing over her. She stepped away, clutching the boarding pass tightly. She had done it. She was really here. Time passed slowly. Too slowly. Amara sat in the waiting area, her bag on her lap, her eyes constantly moving, watching, observing, learning. Every announcement made her heart jump. Every movement made her anxious. But beneath it all, there was excitement. Real excitement. Then came the announcement. "Passengers for Flight 302 to Abuja. Please proceed to Gate 4 for boarding." Her heart skipped. This is it. She stood up quickly, adjusting her bag. Her legs felt slightly weak, but she forced herself forward. Step by step. Closer. Closer. This was it. Everything she had worked for. Everything she had sacrificed. Everything she had endured. Right here. Right now. And then, she heard it. A strange sound. A choking. Gasping. Desperate. First she tried to ignore it. "Not your business." But it didn't stop. It grew louder. More urgent. More painful. Her steps slowed. Then stopped. She turned. An elderly man had collapsed a few meters away. He clutched his chest, his body trembling slightly as he struggled to breathe. His face was pale. His lips dry. His eyes wide with panic. People stood around him, watching, whispering. But no one moved. No one helped. Amara's heart began to race. Her gaze flicked back toward the boarding gate. People were lining up, moving forward. Her flight, her future, just steps away. Then back to the man, gasping, fading, alone. Her chest tightened painfully. Someone will help him, she thought. It doesn't have to be you. But even as the thought formed, she knew it wasn't true, because no one was helping. Her parents' faces flashed in her mind. Her mother's voice, her father's kindness. Always help when you can. Her breath caught. Another boarding call echoed. Final call for passengers. Amara closed her eyes briefly. Her entire body trembled. This was it. The moment. The choice. Then, she dropped her bag and ran. "Sir, sir, can you hear me?" She knelt beside the man, her hands shaking as she supported him. His breathing was uneven, strained, tearing through his chest. "Help! Someone help!" she shouted. Finally, people began to react. Airport staff rushed over. "What happened?" "I don't know," Amara said quickly. "He just collapsed. He can't breathe." "Step back, madam." "I'm not leaving him," she snapped. Her voice surprised even herself. But she meant it. "Madam, your flight—" One staff member started. "I said I'm not leaving him." Her chest rose and fell rapidly. Her heart pounded wildly. Tears blurred her vision. But she didn't move. Minutes later, they were rushing him onto a stretcher. "Are you coming?" someone asked her. Amara hesitated for only a second. Then she nodded. "Yes." As the ambulance doors closed, Amara looked down at her hands. They were shaking, her clothes slightly wrinkled, her heart still racing. Somewhere in the distance, plane took off. Her flight, gone. Just like that. She leaned back against the seat, her eyes staring blankly ahead. Her chest felt heavy. Not regret. Not exactly. But something close. Something painful. "I hope I made the right choice," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the sound of the siren. Because in that moment, Amara had given up everything she worked for. Not for certainty, not for reward, but for a stranger. And now, all she could do was wait and hope that it meant something. The ambulance ride felt endless. Not because it was far, but because every second inside it stretched, heavy with uncertainty. Amara sat pressed against the side, her hands still trembling, her eyes fixed on the elderly man lying on the stretcher. His chest rose and fell unevenly, each breath a struggle, each second a fight. A paramedic leaned over him, working quickly. "Sir, stay with us. Can you hear me?" No response. The machine beside him beeped softly, steadily. Too steadily, like it was trying to hold something fragile together. Amara swallowed hard. Her heart hadn't slowed since she left the airport. If anything, it felt worse now. Because now, there was nothing to distract her. No boarding announcements. No rushing crowd. No illusion of choice. Just reality. She had missed her flight. The thought crept in slowly at first. Then fully. It's gone. Her chest tightened. That ticket had cost her everything. Months of hunger. Endless days under the sun. Pain. Exhaustion. Hope. And just like that, it was over. Her fingers curled slightly against her palm. You chose this. Yes, she did. No one forced her. No one pressured her. She saw a man dying, and she ran to him. She stayed. She followed. She chose him. So why did it still hurt this much? Amara closed her eyes briefly, leaning her head back against the metal wall of the ambulance. For a moment, exhaustion washed over her completely. Her body felt weak. Her mind overwhelmed. Her heart conflicted. Madam, she opened her eyes. The paramedic was looking at her. You're his relative? Amara shook her head quickly. No, I found him at the airport. The man paused, surprised. You stayed with him? She nodded. Yes. He studied her for a moment, something like quiet respect passing through his eyes. Not many people would do that. Amara looked down at her hands. I couldn't just leave him. The words came out softly, almost defensively, as if she needed to justify it. The paramedic nodded slowly, then returned to his work. But his words lingered. Not many people would do that. Amara leaned forward slightly, her eyes drifting back to the man. He looked so fragile now, so different from the crowd of strong, confident people she had seen at the airport. His life, whatever it had been, had come down to this moment. This breath, this struggle. Her throat tightened. What if I had walked away? She whispered to herself. The thought sent a chill through her. She imagined it, walking past him, ignoring the sound, boarding her flight, sitting comfortably in her seat while he lay there, alone, dying. Her chest constricted sharply. No, she murmured. She couldn't have done that, even if it cost her everything. She just couldn't. The ambulance slowed, then stopped. Clear the way, someone shouted as the doors opened. The sudden brightness hit her eyes as the stretcher was wheeled out quickly. Amara hesitated for only a second before following. The hospital was a blur of movement. Doctors, nurses, voices overlapping, urgency everywhere. They rushed him into the emergency room. And just like that, Amara was left outside. The doors swung shut in front of her. Silence followed. Not complete silence, but the kind that felt isolating. Empty. She stood there for a moment, unsure of what to do. Her hands felt strange, like they had lost their purpose. Then slowly, she sat down. The hospital corridor was cold. Colder than the airport. Colder than the streets. The air conditioning hummed softly, but it did nothing to calm the storm inside her. She wrapped her arms around herself, her bag resting on her lap. Her bag. Her eyes dropped to it. For a moment, she just stared. Then she slowly unzipped it. Her fingers moved carefully as she pulled out the folded paper inside. Her flight ticket. She unfolded it, smoothed it out, stared at her name printed clearly across it. Her flight number, her destination, everything she had worked for, everything she had planned. Gone. Her vision blurred. Tears filled her eyes before she could stop them. I was so close, she whispered. Her voice broke on the last word. So close. Closer than she had ever been. And yet, still not enough. She pressed the paper against her chest, her shoulders shaking as the tears finally came. Not loud, not uncontrollable, but deep, painful, heavy. I tried, she whispered. I really tried. Every memory came rushing back. The heat, the hunger, the insults, the exhaustion, all of it. For this moment, for that flight, for that chance. And now, nothing. She bent forward slightly, her forehead resting against her clasped hands. What am I going to do now? She murmured. She had no money left, no backup plan, no second chance. Just uncertainty. Time passed. She didn't know how much. Minutes. Hours. It all felt the same. At some point, a nurse walked past and paused. Are you waiting for someone? Amara looked up slowly. The man they brought in from the airport. The nurse nodded. They're still attending to him. Is he going to be okay? The nurse hesitated. We're doing our best. Amara nodded slowly. Thank you. The nurse gave her a small, kind smile before walking away. Amara leaned back in her chair, staring at the ceiling. Her tears had dried now, leaving behind a quiet emptiness. But beneath that emptiness, something else remained. She didn't regret it. The realization came quietly. Unexpectedly, but clearly, even after everything, even after losing her chance, she didn't regret helping him. Her fingers tightened slightly around the ticket. "If I had to choose again," she whispered. She paused, then nodded faintly. "I would still help him, because some things mattered more." She didn't know what would happen next. She didn't know how she would recover from this. She didn't know if another opportunity would ever come. But she knew one thing. She hadn't lost herself. In a world that had taken so much from her, her parents, her home, her comfort, her stability, it hadn't taken her heart. And that meant something. Amara exhaled slowly, leaning her head back against the wall. Her eyes closed gently. For the first time since the airport, her breathing steadied. Whatever happened next, she would face it, the same way she had faced everything else. One step at a time. Morning came slowly, not with peace, not with clarity, but with a dull, heavy awareness that refused to be ignored. Amara opened her eyes to the unfamiliar ceiling of the hospital corridor, her neck stiff, her body aching from sleeping in an awkward position on the hard chair. For a moment she didn't move. She just lay there, staring. Then reality returned. All at once. The airport, the man, the ambulance, the missed flight. Her chest tightened. She sat up slowly, rubbing her eyes as she tried to steady her breathing. "I'm still here," she whispered. Of course she was. There was nowhere else to go. The corridor was quieter now, softer. Morning light filtered through the windows, casting pale shadows across the tiled floor. A few nurses moved about quietly, their footsteps light, their voices low. It felt like a different world from the chaos of the previous day. But inside Amara, nothing had changed. Her bag was still clutched tightly to her side. She adjusted it instinctively, as if afraid someone might take it. Then she looked down at her hands. They were calmer now, still tired, still slightly shaky, but calmer. Her stomach growled loudly. She winced. She hadn't eaten since. She couldn't even remember. Yesterday? Maybe the day before? Hunger had become such a constant in her life that it no longer shocked her. But today felt heavier, because today she had nothing left. No money, no plan, no direction. Amara leaned back against the chair, closing her eyes briefly. "What now?" she murmured. The question hung in the air, unanswered. She thought about going back to Lagos, back to her uncle's house, back to the same life, the same struggles, the same cold treatment. Her chest tightened at the thought. Felt like going backwards, like everything she had fought for had been erased. But what choice did she have? She had no money for another flight, no connections, no opportunities waiting, just reality. A soft sound pulled her from her thoughts. Footsteps, heavy, measured, different from the quiet movement of nurses. Amara opened her eyes. First, she didn't think much of it. Then she saw the car. Through the large glass window at the end of the corridor, a sleek black Rolls-Royce pulled into the hospital compound. Even from a distance, it stood out. Polished, elegant, powerful. It didn't belong in the same world as everything else around it. Amara blinked. She had seen expensive cars before, from afar, on the road, but never this close, never like this. The car came to a smooth stop. A uniformed driver stepped out quickly, moving with precision as he walked to the back door and opened it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a man stepped out. He was tall, well-built, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit that fit him like it was made for him, and it probably was. His shoes gleamed under the morning light. His posture was straight, confident, controlled. But his face was tense, worried, urgent. Amara's eyes followed him as he moved quickly toward the hospital entrance. People turned to look, not openly, but subtly, the kind of attention that came with presence, power, influence. "Where is he?" The man's voice rang out as he entered. It wasn't loud, but it carried, sharp, demanding. A nurse hurried toward him. "Sir, please." "My father," he said quickly. "He was brought in yesterday, from the airport." Amara froze. Her heart skipped. The man. The nurse nodded quickly. "Yes, sir. He's in the emergency ward." "How is he?" the man asked, his jaw tight. "He's stable for now, but I need to see him." "Yes, sir. This way." Amara watched as they walked past her. Her heart began to race again. That was his son. She hadn't thought about it before. Not really. The man she helped, He wasn't just anyone. He had a family, people who cared about him, people who were looking for him. Her fingers tightened slightly around her bag. For a moment she considered standing up, saying something, explaining, but doubt held her back. What if he doesn't care? What if he thinks it's nothing? So she stayed where she was, silent, watching. Time passed. Again she wasn't sure how much. Minutes, maybe an hour. Then she saw him again. The man in the suit. He walked back into the corridor, slower this time. His face had changed, still serious, but calmer, relieved. His eyes scanned the area briefly. Then, they landed on her. Amara felt it instantly. That moment of recognition. Even though they had never met before. He walked toward her, steady, purposeful. Her heart began to pound. "Excuse me," he said, stopping in front of her. His voice was deep, controlled, but there was something else in it. Curiosity. Amara stood up quickly. "Yes, sir?" He studied her for a moment, taking in her simple clothes, her tired eyes, the way she held herself. "You were here yesterday," he said. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. Amara nodded slowly. "Yes, sir." "You were with my father." Her throat tightened slightly. "Yes, I found him at the airport." The man's gaze sharpened slightly. "You stayed with him?" Amara nodded again. "Yes, sir." For a moment he didn't say anything. He just looked at her, carefully, as if trying to understand something deeper. Then, "Thank you." The words were simple, but they carried weight. Amara blinked slightly, surprised. "You don't have to." "Yes, I do," he said firmly. His expression softened slightly. "You saved his life." Her breath caught. "I just helped," she said quietly. He shook his head. "No, you did more than that." He paused. Most people would have walked away. Amara's eyes dropped briefly. "I almost did." He noticed. "Almost." She hesitated, then nodded. "I had a flight," she admitted softly. His brow furrowed slightly. "A flight?" "Yes, sir." She took a small breath. "I was going for an interview, but I missed it." Silence. For the first time, something shifted in his expression. Surprise. Then something deeper. Something like realization. "You missed your flight? Because of my father?" Amara nodded. The man exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair. For a moment he looked away, as if processing it. Then he looked back at her. And this time, there was something different in his eyes. Not just gratitude, not just curiosity, but respect. "What is your name?" he asked. "Amara," she replied softly. He nodded. "Amara." He repeated it like he was committing it to memory. "My name is Daniel." Amara nodded slightly. "Nice to meet you, sir." Daniel shook his head lightly. "Just Daniel." She hesitated. "Okay, Daniel." A small pause settled between them. Then, "There's something you should know," he said. Amara looked up. "My father," he continued slowly. "He owns the company you were going to interview with." The words hit like lightning. Amara froze. Her heart stopped, then raced. "What?" she whispered. Daniel nodded. "The one in Abuja." Her breath caught in her throat. Her mind struggled to process it. All this time, all that effort, all that sacrifice, and somehow, she had ended up here, standing in front of the son of the man who controlled her future. Amara's hands trembled slightly. This couldn't be real, but it was. And just like that, everything changed. Amara couldn't speak. For a moment, no, for several long suspended seconds, her mind simply refused to catch up with reality. She just stood there, staring at Daniel, her lips slightly parted, her breathing uneven. "He owns the company." The words echoed in her head over and over again, each time sounding more unbelievable than the last. The same company she had worked so hard to reach. The same interview she had sacrificed everything for. The same opportunity she thought she had lost forever. All of it, connected to the man lying in that hospital room. The man she had chosen to help. "This doesn't make sense," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel studied her quietly. "I know it's a lot to take in," he said. "A lot." Amara let out a shaky breath, almost laughing in disbelief. "I missed my only chance. And now you're telling me that the person I stayed back for is the reason I even had that chance in the first place?" Her voice trembled, not with anger, but with the overwhelming weight of everything colliding at once. Daniel didn't interrupt her. He let her process it. Amara ran a hand through her hair, pacing slightly now. This is unbelievable, she murmured. Her chest rose and fell quickly. I worked for months, she continued, her voice tightening. I hawked on the streets. I barely ate. I saved every single naira just to get that ticket. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. And then, I lost it. The last word came out heavier, softer. Daniel's expression shifted slightly, his jaw tightening, his eyes reflecting something deeper now. Guilt, not directly his own, but connected. I'm sorry, he said quietly. Amara shook her head quickly. No, it's not your fault. She paused, swallowing hard. I made that choice. Silence settled briefly between them. Not awkward, but heavy, meaningful. Then Daniel spoke again. You said you were going for the interview, he said. Do you still want that job? Amara looked up at him immediately. The question caught her off guard. Of course I do, she said without hesitation. Her voice was firm now, certain. That's the whole reason She stopped herself. But the meaning was clear. Daniel nodded slowly. Good. Amara frowned slightly. Good. He slipped one hand into his pocket. His posture relaxed but his gaze focused. Because you're still getting it. Amara blinked. I'm what? You're still getting your interview, he repeated. Her heart skipped violently. How? She asked quickly. I missed my flight. The interview is in Abuja. I don't even have money to go back. Amara, Daniel said gently, cutting through her rising panic. She stopped. My father owns the company, he reminded her. The words landed differently this time. Not shocking, but grounding. We can arrange another interview, he continued. A better one. Amara stared at him, her mind racing again. But the deadline doesn't matter. The shortlist doesn't matter. Her breath caught. Daniel took a small step closer. What matters is that you were qualified enough to apply, he said. And more importantly, he paused. You showed something far more valuable than anything on a CV. Amara's chest tightened. You gave up your opportunity to save someone else, he continued. Not because you had to, not because anyone was watching, but because it was the right thing to do. Her eyes dropped slightly. I didn't think about it like that, she said softly. I know, Daniel replied. That's what makes it real. Silence again, but this time felt different, lighter. Amara's fingers tightened slightly around her bag. Are you serious? She asked carefully. Daniel nodded. Completely. Her heart began to race again. But this time, not from fear. From hope. Dangerous, rising hope. I don't understand, she admitted. Why would you do this for me? Daniel's expression softened slightly. It's not just me, he said. It's my father too. Amara looked toward the emergency ward instinctively. He doesn't even know me, she said. Daniel gave a small, knowing smile. He knows enough. She frowned slightly. What do you mean? He was conscious for a few minutes earlier, Daniel explained. Not long, but long enough to ask questions. Amara's breath hitched. He asked who brought him to the hospital, Daniel continued. The staff told him about you. Her heart thudded heavily in her chest. He said something before he drifted off again, Daniel added. Amara leaned forward slightly. What did he say? Daniel held her gaze. He said, find her. The words sent a chill through her. Amara's lips parted slightly, but no sound came out. He wants to meet you, Daniel said simply. Everything inside her seemed to pause. Me? She whispered. Daniel nodded. Amara shook her head faintly, overwhelmed. I don't even know what to say. You don't have to say anything, Daniel replied. Just be yourself. She let out a small, nervous laugh. That hasn't exactly worked out well for me so far. Daniel's lips curved slightly. I think it has. Their eyes met briefly. And for the first time since all of this began, Amara felt something shift. Not just hope, not just relief, but something deeper. A sense that maybe, just maybe, everything she had lost wasn't gone forever. I don't have anything, she said quietly after a moment. No proper clothes, no preparation, nothing. Daniel shook his head. You have enough. She looked at him, uncertain. You have your story, he said. And trust me, that's more powerful than anything you could have prepared. Amara exhaled slowly. Her heart was still racing, but it felt different now, steadier. "So what happens now?" she asked. Daniel glanced toward the ward, then back at her. "Now, we wait for my father to wake up." Amara nodded slowly, and just like that, her story, her struggle, her sacrifice, her loss, had led her here, not to the end, but to something else, something unexpected, something bigger. As she sat back down in the hospital corridor, her bag still clutched tightly in her hands, Amara stared ahead. The future was still uncertain, still fragile, still unpredictable. But for the first time since she missed that flight, it didn't feel lost. Felt possible again. Waiting felt different now. Before, it had been filled with fear, uncertainty, loss. Now it carried something else. Anticipation. Amara sat quietly in the hospital corridor, her hands folded in her lap, her bag resting beside her. Her back leaned lightly against the chair, but her posture was alert, almost tense. Her eyes drifted occasionally toward the emergency ward doors. Waiting, hoping, thinking. Everything still felt unreal. Less than 24 hours ago, she had been standing at the airport, watching her future slip away. Now, she was sitting in a hospital, being told that same future might still be within reach. Not through struggle this time, but through something she hadn't even planned. Kindness. Her fingers intertwined tightly. "Don't get carried away," she warned herself. Nothing is certain yet. She had learned the hard way that hope could be fragile. Dangerous, even. But still, she couldn't stop it from growing. Daniel stood a few feet away, speaking quietly on the phone. His voice was calm, controlled, but firm, like someone used to being listened to. Amara glanced at him briefly. Even now, she found it hard to believe how quickly things had shifted. Yesterday, they were strangers. Today, he was the bridge between her and everything she had worked for. He ended the call and turned toward her. "They're still monitoring him," he said. Amara nodded. "Okay." There was a brief pause. Then, "You haven't eaten, have you?" he asked. Amara blinked, slightly caught off guard. "I'm fine," she said automatically. Daniel raised an eyebrow. "That's not what I asked." She hesitated, then gave a small, reluctant shake of her head. "No, not really." Without another word, he reached into his pocket, pulled out his wallet, and handed her some money. "Go and get something to eat," he said. Amara stared at the money, then back at him. "I can't take this," she said quickly. "Yes, you can," Daniel replied calmly. "No, Amara," he said, his tone firm but not harsh. "This isn't charity. You've been here all night. You need to eat." She hesitated, her pride and her reality clashing. "I'll pay you back," she said finally. Daniel gave a small smile. "If it makes you feel better." After a moment, she accepted it. "Thank you." As she stood and walked toward the hospital cafeteria, her steps felt slightly strange. Not because of the money, but because of what it represented. Help. Genuine help. Without insults. Without conditions. Without humiliation. It had been a long time since she experienced that. The cafeteria was quiet. She bought a simple meal. Nothing extravagant. Just enough to settle the hunger that had been gnawing at her. As she sat down and took her first bite, her eyes stung slightly. Not from the food, but from the realization of how long it had been since she ate without worry. Without counting. Without sacrifice. She ate slowly, carefully, savoring each bite. Not because it was special food, but because it felt like a small piece of peace. When she returned, Daniel was standing near the ward doors again. "They're allowing visitors soon," he said as she approached. Her heart skipped. "Now?" "Soon," he repeated. Amara nodded, her chest tightening slightly. Minutes later, a doctor stepped out. "Family of Mr. Adewale?" he called. Daniel stepped forward immediately. "That's me." The doctor nodded. "He's awake. You can see him now, but not for too long." Daniel glanced at Amara, then back at the doctor. "She's coming with me." The doctor hesitated for a second, then nodded. "All right, but keep it brief." Amara's heart began to pound. This was it. She followed Daniel inside. Each step felt heavier than the last. The room was quiet. Machines hummed softly. And there, lying on the bed, was the man. He looked different, weaker, but alive. His eyes were open. They moved slowly toward the door as they entered, then settled on Amara. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Amara felt something shift inside her. A strange mix of emotions. Relief, nervousness, connection. Daniel stepped closer. "Dad," he said gently. "This is her." The old man's gaze remained fixed on Amara, studying, observing. "Come closer," he said softly. Amara hesitated for only a second before stepping forward. "Good morning, sir," she said respectfully. He nodded slightly. His voice was weak, but clear. "You're the one who helped me." Amara lowered her eyes briefly. "Yes, sir." "Why?" he asked. The question caught her off guard. She looked up slowly. I couldn't leave you there," she said honestly. He watched her carefully. "Even though you had somewhere else to be?" Her chest tightened. "Yes, sir." Silence. Then, a faint smile touched his lips. "Good," he said. Amara blinked slightly. "Do you know who I am?" he asked. She shook her head. "No, sir." He glanced briefly at Daniel, then back at her. "I own the company you were going to for your interview." Even though she already knew, hearing it from him felt different, more real. Her heart began to race again. "I heard you missed your flight," he continued. Amara nodded slowly. "Yes, sir." "And you stayed with me instead." "Yes, sir." He studied her for a long moment. Then, "You chose a stranger over your own future." Amara swallowed. "It didn't feel like a choice, sir." His eyes softened slightly. "That's exactly why it was." Silence filled the room again. But this time, it wasn't heavy. It was thoughtful. Then he spoke again. "Tell me, if you had to do it again, would you still help me?" Amara didn't hesitate. "Yes, sir." The answer came instantly, naturally, without doubt. The old man nodded slowly. Then he turned to Daniel. "Give her the job." Amara's breath caught. "What?" she whispered. Daniel smiled slightly. "You heard him." Amara shook her head faintly. No, I haven't even done the interview." "You just did," the old man said calmly. Her heart pounded violently. "But no certificates can teach what you showed yesterday," he continued. "No training can replace that kind of character." Tears filled Amara's eyes. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Say you'll work hard," he replied. She nodded quickly. "I will, sir. I promise." "I know you will." He leaned back slightly, clearly tired now. "Daniel will take care of the rest," he added. Amara stepped back slowly, her entire body trembling slightly. This was real. Not hope. Not possibility. Reality. As they stepped out of the room, Amara felt like her legs might give out. She stopped in the corridor, turning to Daniel. I got the job?" she asked, still in disbelief. Daniel nodded. A small laugh escaped her lips. Then another. Then suddenly, she covered her mouth as tears spilled over. "I got the job," she repeated. "After everything, after all the pain, all the sacrifice, all the loss, she had made it. Not the way she planned, not the way she imagined, but she made it." And in that moment, Amara realized something powerful. Sometimes, life doesn't reward you for what you plan. It rewards you for who you are. The first time Amara stood in front of her new apartment, she didn't go in immediately. She just stood there, still, quiet, staring. The building rose above her, clean, modern, polished in a way that felt almost unreal. The glass windows reflected the bright Abuja sky, and the neatly arranged surroundings made everything look intentional, orderly, peaceful. Nothing like the chaos she had known for months. "Are you going in? Or are you planning to sleep outside?" Daniel's voice broke through her thoughts, light with amusement. Amara blinked, turning slightly to look at him. She paused, then let out a small breath. "I don't think this has entered my head yet." Daniel smiled faintly. "It will." She looked back at the building. "This is really mine?" "Yes," he replied simply. Amara's fingers tightened slightly around the strap of her bag. "Mine." The word felt foreign, heavy, unfamiliar. Just weeks ago, she had been sleeping in a cramped, dusty room filled with broken furniture. Now, she swallowed hard. Then slowly, she stepped forward. The security guard at the entrance greeted them politely as they walked in. "Good afternoon, sir." Daniel nodded. "Afternoon." The guard turned to Amara with a respectful smile. "Welcome, Ma." Amara hesitated for a second, then nodded slightly. "Thank you, Ma." No one had called her that in a long time, not with respect. The elevator ride felt surreal. The soft hum, the smooth movement, the quiet. Amara stood still, her eyes occasionally flicking to the mirrored walls, catching glimpses of herself. She looked the same, but everything around her had changed. "Relax," Daniel said gently, noticing her tension. "I am relaxed," she replied quickly. He raised an eyebrow slightly. "You look like you're about to take an exam." She let out a small laugh despite herself. "Maybe I am." The elevator doors opened. They stepped out into a clean, well-lit hallway. Daniel walked ahead, stopping in front of a door. Then he turned to her. "You ready?" Amara took a small breath, then nodded. He opened the door, and everything shifted. The space inside was beautiful. Not just nice, not just comfortable. Beautiful. The living room was spacious, filled with soft furniture arranged neatly. A glass center table reflecting the light from large windows that overlooked the city. The curtains swayed slightly with the breeze. The air smelled fresh, clean. Amara stepped in slowly, carefully, as if she was afraid she might break something just by being there. Her eyes moved from one corner to another. The couch, the television, the dining area, the soft rug beneath her feet. "This?" she whispered. She walked further in, her steps slow, almost hesitant. Her fingers brushed lightly against the back of the couch. Soft, real. "This is mine?" she asked again, her voice quieter this time. Daniel leaned against the wall casually. "Yes." She turned to him. "But why?" The question came from somewhere deeper. Not disbelief alone, but confusion. Daniel straightened slightly. "It's part of your employment package," he explained. "Accommodation, transportation, and salary." Amara shook her head faintly. "All this? For someone like me?" Daniel's expression shifted slightly. "Someone like you?" She hesitated. "I mean, I've never had anything like this before." He studied her for a moment, then spoke. "That doesn't mean you don't deserve it." The words landed quietly, but deeply. Amara looked away briefly, her throat tightening slightly. "I'm not used to this," she admitted. "I know," Daniel said softly. Silence settled for a moment. Not uncomfortable, just real. Then Amara exhaled slowly and turned back to the room. She walked toward the window, looked out. The city stretched below her, buildings, roads, movement. A different world. "This feels like someone else's life," she said. Daniel smiled faintly. "It's yours now." She didn't respond immediately, because she wasn't sure she fully believed it yet. Later that day, things moved quickly, faster than she expected. Documents were signed, details explained, her official employment confirmed. And then, her car. Amara stood outside again, staring at it. A sleek, clean vehicle parked neatly in front of the building. "This one is yours," Daniel said. She let out a small, breathless laugh. "You're joking." "I'm not." She walked closer, circling it slowly. Her reflection stared back at her from the shiny surface. "I don't even know how to drive properly," she admitted. Daniel chuckled. "We'll fix that." She shook her head, still in disbelief. Everything felt like too much, too fast, too good. That night, for the first time in months, Amara slept on a proper bed. Not a thin mattress, not a hard floor, a real bed, soft, comfortable. She lay on her back, staring at the ceiling. The room was quiet, peaceful, but sleep didn't come immediately. Her mind replayed everything. The streets, the heat, the hunger, the insults, her aunt's voice, her uncle's silence. Then, the airport, the man, the choice. Her chest rose slowly, then fell. "If I didn't stop," she whispered, "everything would be different. She might have gotten the job, or maybe not, but she wouldn't be here." She turned onto her side, pulling the blanket slightly closer. "I guess everything really happens for a reason," she murmured. For the first time, she allowed herself to feel it fully. Not just relief, not just gratitude, but peace. The kind she hadn't felt since before her parents died. And as her eyes slowly closed, Amara drifted into sleep, not as the girl who lost everything, but as someone who had finally begun to gain something back. A new life, one she never saw coming, but one she was ready to live. At first, Amara didn't notice when things began to change, because everything already felt like change. New home, new job, new city, new life. So the small shifts, the subtle moments, the quiet glances, the growing familiarity, slipped in unnoticed, like a gentle tide, slow, steady, inevitable. Her first week at the company felt like a dream she was afraid to wake up from. The building itself was intimidating, tall, sleek, filled with people who moved with confidence and purpose. People who looked like they belonged. Unlike her. On her first day, she stood outside the glass doors for a few seconds longer than necessary. Her reflection stared back at her. Neatly dressed, composed, different. You're going to wear a hole in the floor if you keep standing there. Daniel's voice came from behind her. Amara turned, slightly startled. I'm just preparing myself. He smiled. For what? War. She let out a small laugh. It feels like it. Daniel stepped beside her. You earned this, he said simply. You don't have to prove anything. Amara nodded slowly, but inside, she still felt like she did. The first few days were overwhelming. New systems, new responsibilities, new expectations. Amara worked harder than anyone noticed. She stayed late, asked questions, took notes, observed everything. She wasn't going to lose this opportunity. Not after everything. But in the middle of all that effort, there was Daniel. He didn't hover, didn't interfere, didn't treat her like someone fragile. Instead, he showed up in small ways. Have you eaten? He would ask casually. You're doing too much, he'd say when he noticed her still working late. Take a break. The work will still be here tomorrow. At first, Amara kept her distance. Careful, respectful, professional. She called him sir again once. Daniel stopped mid-step and turned to her. If you call me that again, I might actually get offended. Amara blinked. But, you're my boss. He shook his head. I'm not your boss. I just work here too. She raised an eyebrow slightly. That's not what it looks like. He smiled. Still, just Daniel. She hesitated, then nodded. Okay, Daniel. Saying his name felt strange at first, but also natural. Weeks passed, and slowly, a rhythm formed. They began to talk more, not just about work, but about everything. One evening, as they stood outside the office building watching the sun dip below the horizon, Daniel spoke. So, you used to hawk? Amara nodded. Yes. He looked at her, curious. What was that like? She let out a soft breath. Hard. He waited. At first, I was embarrassed, she continued. I kept thinking, what if someone from school sees me? What if they laugh? Daniel's expression softened slightly. But after a while, she said, you stop caring, because survival doesn't leave room for pride. Silence settled between them. That must have been difficult, he said quietly. Amara shrugged slightly. It was what I had to do. He studied her. And you did it. She gave a small smile. I did. That was the thing about Daniel. He listened. Really listened. Not like people who waited for their turn to talk, but like someone who actually wanted to understand. And Amara found herself opening up. Slowly, carefully, but honestly, she told him about her parents. Her voice softer when she spoke about them. My dad used to call me every day, she said once, a faint smile on her lips. Even if it was just for 2 minutes. Daniel smiled slightly. He sounds like a good man. He was, she replied. Her voice dipped slightly. Daniel didn't rush to fill the silence. He just stood there with her. That meant more than words. And then, without either of them planning it, things began to shift. It started with small moments. A glance that lingered a second longer than necessary. A smile that felt different. A silence that wasn't empty, but full. One evening it rained. Heavy. Sudden. Amara stood at the entrance of her building, watching the rain pour down in thick sheets. She had forgotten her umbrella. Looks like you're stuck. She turned. Daniel, standing beside her. Seems like it, she said. They stood there quietly, watching the rain. Then, you know, Daniel said, you could just run for it. Amara laughed. In this rain? I'll get soaked. He shrugged. Or we could wait. So they waited, and talked, about nothing, and everything, and somewhere between the sound of the rain hitting the ground, and the quiet space they shared, something changed. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but clearly. Amara felt it first. A strange warmth in her chest, a quiet awareness of him, the way he spoke, the way he looked at her, the way he made things feel easy, and it scared her, because this was new. She had spent so long surviving, fighting, enduring. There had been no room for feelings like this. But now they were there. uninvited, but undeniable. One night, as she sat in her apartment, she stared at her phone. Daniel's name sat at the top of her messages. She smiled slightly, then caught herself. "What am I doing?" she murmured. This was dangerous. She had just gotten her life back on track. She couldn't afford distractions. But this didn't feel like a distraction. It felt like something else. Something right. A few days later, everything came to a head. They were standing on her balcony, the city lights glowing softly below them. Neither of them had spoken for a while. Then Daniel exhaled slowly. "There's something I need to say." Amara's heart skipped. She turned to him. His expression was serious, but not tense. "I didn't plan this," he said. Her chest tightened. "I didn't expect it," he continued. She swallowed. "But somewhere along the way," he paused, then met her eyes. "I started caring about you." The words landed softly, but deeply. Amara's breath caught. "I don't want to pretend it's not there," he said. "And I don't want to confuse you either." Silence. Amara looked down briefly, then back at him. "I felt it too," she admitted. The moment she said it, something lifted. Daniel's expression softened. "But I was scared," she added. "Why?" "Because I've lost so much already," she said quietly. "I didn't want to risk losing anything again." Daniel stepped closer. Not too close. Just enough. "I'm not something you'll lose," he said gently. Her eyes searched his. "Are you sure?" she asked. He nodded. "I'm not going anywhere." Silence. Then slowly, Amara smiled. And just like that, what started as chance became something more, something real. Because sometimes, love doesn't arrive loudly. It grows quietly, in the spaces between struggle and healing. And before you realize it, it's already there. The morning of Amara's wedding began quietly. No chaos, no shouting, no pressure, just peace. Sunlight filtered softly through the curtains of her bedroom, casting a warm glow across the neatly arranged space. The same room that once felt unfamiliar now felt like home. Comfortable, safe, hers. Amara sat at the edge of her bed, her hands resting gently on her lap, her breathing slow and steady. For a moment, she did nothing. She simply sat, listening, feeling, existing. "I'm getting married today," she whispered softly. The words felt surreal. Even now, a small smile touched her lips, but her eyes shimmered slightly, not with sadness, but with something deeper, memory. Her gaze drifted toward the window, and like a quiet wave, the past came rushing back. The library, the phone call, her parents. Her throat tightened slightly. "I wish you were here," she murmured. She could almost hear her mother's voice. "My daughter will be the most beautiful bride." And her father's laughter. "Just don't scare the groom away." A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. "Amara?" She turned. "Come in." The door opened gently, and one of the stylists stepped in, followed by two others. "It's time," the woman said with a warm smile. Amara nodded slowly. "Okay." As they began preparing her, everything felt calm. Not rushed, not overwhelming. Her dress was simple, elegant, beautiful in a way that didn't demand attention, but held it anyway. As she stood in front of the mirror, watching them adjust the final details, Amara barely recognized the woman staring back at her. Not because she looked different, but because she felt different. Stronger, whole, peace. "Done," one of the stylists said with a smile. Amara took a slow breath, then looked at herself fully. For a moment, she said nothing. Then quietly, "I made it." The ceremony was held in a quiet, beautifully decorated space. Not extravagant, not overwhelming, just meaningful. Close friends, a few colleagues, and Daniel's family. As Amara stood at the entrance, her heart began to beat faster. Not from fear, but from emotion. At the end of the aisle, Daniel stood waiting. His eyes found hers immediately, and in that moment, everything else faded. The journey, the struggle, the pain, all of it led here. She took her first step, then another. Each step felt like a chapter closing, and another beginning. As she walked, her mind replayed everything. The dusty streets, the scorching sun, the weight of the tray on her head, her aunt's harsh words, her uncle's silence, the airport, the choice, the missed flight. Her chest rose slowly. If she hadn't stopped, if she had walked away, none of this would exist. She reached the front, standing face to face with Daniel. He smiled, soft, certain. You look beautiful, he said quietly. Amara smiled back. So do you. They both let out a small laugh. And just like that, the tension eased. The ceremony was simple, but every word carried weight. When it was time for their vows, Daniel went first. I didn't expect to meet you the way I did, he said, his voice steady. A few soft chuckles filled the room. But I'm grateful that I did, he continued. You remind me that kindness still exists in this world, that strength doesn't always look loud, and that the best things in life sometimes come when we're not looking for them. Amara's eyes filled with tears. I promise to stand by you, he said, to support you, to love you, not just for who you are today, but for everything you've fought to become. Silence. Soft. Emotional. Then it was her turn. Amara took a breath. Her hands trembled slightly, but her voice was steady. I didn't think my life would look like this, she began. A small smile passed through the room. I've lost a lot, she continued, and for a long time I thought that meant I would always be behind, struggling, trying to catch up. She paused briefly. But then I met you. Her eyes met Daniel's. And I realized, maybe I wasn't behind. Maybe I was just on a different path. Tears slipped down her cheeks. I promised to love you, to trust you, and to never forget where I came from. Because that's what made me who I am today. Daniel's eyes softened. And I'm proud of that, she finished. When they exchanged rings, felt final, real, complete. You may kiss the bride. And just like that, they were no longer two separate stories. They were one. The celebration afterward was warm and joyful. Laughter filled the air. Music played softly. Amara moved through it all with a quiet sense of wonder, still taking it in, still absorbing it. At one point, she stepped away from the crowd, moving toward a quiet corner outside. The evening air was cool, peaceful. She looked up at the sky. Thank you, she whispered, not to anyone in particular, but to everything, for the strength, for the struggle, for the journey, and for the moment that changed everything. Behind her, footsteps approached. Daniel, running away from your own party? He teased gently. She smiled. Just taking a moment. He stepped beside her. Thinking about everything? He asked. She nodded. It's strange, she said, how one moment can change your whole life. Daniel followed her gaze upward. The airport, he said. Amara smiled softly. Yes. They stood in silence for a moment. Then she turned to him. If I hadn't missed that flight, he smiled. You wouldn't be here, she nodded. And I wouldn't change it, because in the end, it wasn't the flight she took that changed her life. It was the one she missed. And as Amara stood there, hand in hand with the man she loved, her heart full in a way she once thought was impossible, she finally understood something. Life doesn't always reward you immediately. It doesn't always make sense. And it doesn't always follow your plans. But sometimes, when you choose kindness over convenience, when you choose courage over fear, life has a way of giving back. Not always how you expect, but exactly how you need. And for Amara, she didn't just find success. She didn't just find love. She found herself. And that was the greatest reward of all. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy the story, please subscribe to this channel.